I used to be troubled by the question of what my purpose in life is and how I would recognize it. Part of the self-inquiry stemmed from hearing adults exclaiming how talented or gifted certain people are, and how those people were serving for the good of humanity. They had figured out their calling, the reason for being on earth. Despite initially saying I wanted to be a lawyer. The truth is, growing up, I resented the question, "What are you going to be?" All I knew was that I intended to equip myself with skills, knowledge, and wisdom that would enable me to contribute positively to the world. So there, I finally got that off my chest. This question, or variations of it, continues to exist in our society.
Will your chosen career path have an impact on society?
Absolutely. Because I think the world needs more artists. And not artists only who will just be there, but artists who are able to make a difference.
So will your chosen career path have an impact on society?
Yes, because it is very important to know your history. Also for tourism in our country, finding new sites. For example, 100 years ago, the cradle of humankind was not a thing, but now is, and it's a huge tourist spot. So it's very important, I think, the field of archaeology.
So will your chosen career path have an impact on society?
Of course, because it's mostly aimed at finding greener ways of producing and beneficiating and cleaning minerals. It might not have individual impact on people, but I think looking at it from a wider scope, it will make an impact on people's lives.
And hence we say, fit for good. Welcome to the 4th episode of the Hack Your Future podcast. Today, we'll explore essential strategies for thriving in university and beyond. We'll hear from some of Wits University's greatest academics, professionals, and activists who gained their edge from one of South Africa's top universities. I'm your host, Melusi Ngala, and today's episode is all about understanding that there are many ways to skin a cat.
We're bigger than just our careers, right? And I think most people will have had an experience of our life doesn't always go as planned. Not everything we take on is ideal. So it might be that we have to use this to build our resilience, our flexibility, to make the best of a challenging situation.
Kerry Gordon, a psychologist at Wits University's Counseling and Career Development Unit, is the familiar voice that has accompanied us on this journey since the beginning of the series. I wonder what you think of the view she expressed. Does it resonate? Speaking to her, as well as Witsies who have shared their stories, I definitely see the connection between Gordon's statement and how these Witsies have gone about building their careers. And it's not just about individualism, but it's about acknowledging that to be impactful, you need to think laterally. Take Candice Chirwa, for example. She simply wanted to do something that would change people's lives.
I never thought that I would see myself being an advocate for a biological function that traumatized me when I was 10 years old. And I think that's what inspires me, because the opportunity of changing that fear into empowerment for a lot of young menstruators who are just about to experience their period drives me to do the work that we do every single day. Outside of that, I think realizing the power that education and knowledge sharing has has really been such an inspiring thing for me, because we can go into spaces where we'd spend an hour with young girls, talk to them about periods, talk to them about the things they need to know about different period products, and they get really, really empowered. And I think seeing that level of excitement and that level of empowerment just motivates you to do more. The reason why I'm very passionate about period positivity is because period poverty as a concept should not exist. Why I say that is that if we have a natural biological function, such as, going to the bathroom or sneezing, we all sneeze, right? But we don't have access to control the mucus that comes out of our nose, and then we have to use unhygienic materials to get rid of the snot. That causes a lot of other related health issues. But when we link it to menstrual health, if a young girl does not have access to period products that are required to manage her period with dignity and care, the implications are vast within health, within participation of socioeconomic activities, within dignity, within economics, within a lot of other issues that actually breach human right implications.
Chirwa is known as the Minister of Menstruation by those who follow her TED Talks, podcasts, and writing. The we she refers to is the team she heads as founder of a non-profit called Curate. That's Curate with a Q.
For the first 3 years, studied a Bachelor of Arts, with my key subjects being international relations and politics. The other two are history and philosophy. International relations really set for me my love for gender equality and gender rights and gender studies. And it was only in third year that I then decided that I want to work in international organizations like the United Nations or the UNFPA or the UN Women that are really set on cultivating research, but also implementing programs that directly have an impact on the woman and the girl child. Fast forward to my honors the following year after I graduated. I was doing my thesis. I wasn't entirely sure exactly what my subject would be, but then I got an opportunity to work at the UNFPA as a research consultant. And that was exciting because I was like, okay, I'm working at the UN. This is a great opportunity. I'm 20, turning 21. This is exciting. And the topic was on period poverty. Now, mind you, this is something that I'd never come across. It was something where I was like, okay, period poverty. I think I've heard about period poverty, but very brief. And my feeling towards my period was very negative because when I started my period at the age of 10, I had a very traumatic experience in that I didn't want to speak openly to anyone about it. It's the scary thing of no one's spoken to you about puberty, and yet there's blood coming out and you're like, what's going on? What do I do? You have a conversation with your parents and your mom's like, don't tell anyone about it. So I didn't tell anyone about it. Fast forward to 11 years and I'm 21. And I do this research consultancy, and it really forces me to speak openly about periods. It really forces me to learn about the impact that period poverty has, not only on the girl child, but people who menstruate, and how that is not really being looked at or framed as a human rights issue. So then that prompted me to do my master's, and I did my master's at Wits. My master's was on menstrual health management, at looking at why we should see menstrual health as a human rights issue and what obligations do states have to ensure that the woman and girl child and people who menstruate lives and rights are protected in that regard. Did my master's, very traumatic experience. Traumatic in that I didn't get sleep and also traumatic in the sense that I was told that my topic wasn't relevant. And I think that really hit hard because it's almost as if you're being told your passion doesn't matter. So I had to really work hard in proving to everyone that this topic has relevancy and that my passion really, really can become an academic topic. And thankfully, I was able to pass my master's. And at the same time, then that's when I created my MPO Curate. It's been a really interesting journey. And I think what I'm trying to get to is that sometimes when you are in spaces such as Wits, where you're doing different courses, it can come to you in a moment of realization where I've always had a fascination for this, but now because I'm exposed to the academics or I'm exposed to the people, the researchers, and you tap more into it, it can really guide you in this journey of unlocking your potential.
Research professor and head of SA Medical Research Council at WITS, Karen Hoffman, shares similar passions for the work she does at the Faculty of Health Sciences. Like several other Witties we've heard from in the series, her evolution as a student and her propulsion towards specialization seems almost fatalistic.
Well, let me just say that my career is not a standard, straightforward, this is what happened kind of career. It actually is very surprising to me that I ended up doing what I did. And it was quite a zigzag path. It was a path that I started off training in pediatrics, and then taking the next step was learning about a revolution that was coming to the world, which was to deal with genetics and how DNA mistakes cause disorders in children especially. But I looked at that through what I now call a public health lens, which was looking at screening for these conditions. And I think that after that, I spent 10 years working as a pediatric clinical geneticist. I had done some work in the lab. I didn't really know what I was doing and where I was going. I felt like I was a bit lost, and I would say those first couple of decades, I didn't know what I was doing, and I sort of felt like maybe I should have been doing a master's in public health, and I never did it. I felt like I had good training. I was able to speak to the patients and their families about their various conditions. I learned a lot. I was quite productive. I learned a lot in research. I had spent some time in the United States for several years working at Johns Hopkins. It went well, but I just never felt completely satisfied that I was in the right space. I came back to South Africa on a sabbatical, and I worked in the policy unit in child health in Cape Town. It was quite a revelation to me that this was an area that I felt much more attracted to. It wasn't planned, and I would say that's the key issue, is that you can't plan everything.
Professor Hoffman recalled the moment she decided she no longer wanted to work as a clinician. Her vision expanded, and she found fulfillment elsewhere.
Public health is really, for me anyway, the most important of all the areas that you can do in medicine. I mean, we do need doctors who can manage patients specifically, and I don't want to minimize that. I think that those primary care physicians and specialists are very important. But if you really want to make a difference in health, then you have to think about the whole population. So the kind of work that I've done is to establish a team of people here at the School of Public Health, people who are both public health practitioners, who are trained in public health, clinicians, anthropologists, sociologists, even lawyers, who can think about where we can get the best return on investment. Where is the best buy for health in South Africa? We did quite a lot of work on what are, for example, if you're looking at children, what are the 10 top things that we can do to really save lives? That was very important to me, and I think it certainly contributed to what were then the Millennium Development Goals. I just don't think much has changed since then, and they could use those priorities even now for the Sustainable Development Goals, and they would still save a lot of lives. We also did some work that looked much more at broader populations, looking at policies that were not in the health system. So we looked at, for example, how many lives we would save from decreasing salt in processed foods, particularly bread, which is a staple in South Africa. 40-50% of the country is eating half a loaf of bread, even a loaf of bread every couple of days. So there was a lot of salt in bread, and we did some analysis with some health economists in our team who were really critical to show how many lives we would save and what the cost savings would be. And then we went on to do some further work looking at how many lives we could save from putting a tax on sugary beverages, how many lives we could save in terms of people who were getting to be very overweight and obese because they were drinking huge numbers of sugary drinks in South Africa. How many lives would be saved from diabetes and stroke? And if we didn't do that, what we call the cost of inaction would be. But I have to say that I think that being a doctor has helped me enormously in helping to think these things through, and also talking to policymakers, which we do a lot, and also speaking to the media. Because as a doctor, I was trained to explain things to families and patients. And so I feel like I can explain some of these things in fairly good layman's terms so that people understand. I do feel like, in a very small way, I have, together with my team of about 15 people, sometimes it's a bit less, sometimes a bit more, that we've made a contribution to what's happening in South Africa, and it's been acknowledged certainly in other centres across the globe that are doing similar kinds of work.
On the outside, it may seem as though Chirwa and Professor Hoffman have it all figured out. However, the period after completing your undergrad degree comes with its own set of challenges and requires reflection and balance.
I think people would assume that the low moments would come from other people maybe speaking terribly about my work, but actually I've been in a very good space where a lot of people would be giving me credit, which is great. The low moments really come from me. I struggle with a lot of imposter syndrome, and I do this thing where if I will do a workshop and someone will tell me that the workshop's really good, I automatically get in my head to be like, no, I could have done this better. I should have done that better. The low moments really hit in when I feel that I'm being too hard on myself and I fall into the comparison trap of, I should be here. Look at where other people are. I think being a social entrepreneur, running an organization where you have to go according to how a company should be run versus how it's actually being run, it really hits you hard, because you always think that according to a specific timeline, a specific age, you should be here. And ultimately, when you then have that realization kick in, it hits. And it oftentimes can hit me really hard that I tend to be very unproductive. I fall into a little bit of a depressive trap. But I've learned to let go of the negative hearsay. And I've learned to just be present and grateful in the moments that I do the work and see the impact for what it is. And obviously just give myself the credit for what I do.
I would say times where I haven't been sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't completely satisfied with what I was doing, and I felt like I should be doing something else. I had 2 now grown sons, but they were small children once, and it was a struggle to work full-time and raise a family with my husband, who's been a spectacularly helpful partner. But even so, it is hard to be a full-time mother, full-time researcher, full-time clinician. It was a juggle. I think that making decisions to change and being willing to start from scratch again in a slightly different field, moving from being a clinician into public health, you have to agree to take some steps back.
As Gordon said from the outset of this episode,
not everything we take on is ideal. So it might be that we have to use this to build our resilience, our flexibility, and to make the best of a challenging situation.
Therefore, it comes as no surprise that these Witties keep it moving. Given their versatility and societal outlook based on the work that they do, Chirwa and Professor Hoffman's workdays are indicative of their dedication and willingness to be of service.
My career is very interesting in that, depending on the opportunities that line up, I can easily go from doing a workshop in Hammanskraal to being on set, recording a podcast, for instance, to then going to Wits to tutor my students, to then working on my PhD. And it's not a typical 9 to 5. It varies. There are days when I can find myself giving my whole time to running a workshop, where there are days where I find myself being on set for shooting things for campaigns or collaborations. And it's been very helpful in having a manager just manage my schedule and my time, because I have to know when I have to put my academic hat on, when I have to put my Minister of Administration hat on, or when I have to put my curate hat on. I think I have a very fun career. I really do.
It's mainly sleepless because we're thinking of getting grants all the time. It varies. We have a meeting where we discuss what's going on in the unit, what everybody's research plans are for the next couple of weeks, where we've accomplished things, where we need to go. We spend quite a bit of time thinking about how to create the next grant. In that sense, whilst we did come through COVID very well, I feel like being in the office is actually quite an important thing where we work at the School of Public Health, because being in that office allows people to interact in a way that you can't do when you're absent. And there's an interaction and a spontaneity and a creativity around research ideas, thoughts, and that kind of thing that just doesn't take place when you're not in the office. So we've tried to encourage a lot of our group to come back to the office at least a few days a week, because I think it's important for the creativity. We also spend time writing articles, engaging with other researchers in different settings in the UK and Europe who want to partner with us or who we want to partner with in collaborations. We talk to people here in South Africa where we need information that will allow us to do various analyses. Yeah, we have a little bit of fun as well.
As we conclude this episode, remember the importance of flexibility, perseverance, and the ability to see the bigger picture in your academic journey. Our next episode will be about sketching your game plan. Hack Your Future is a production brought to you by Wits University. The show is hosted and produced by me, Melusi Ngala. The music and sound engineering is by Calvin Bueta. A special thanks to the Head of Marketing and Communication at Wits, Sharona Patel, Zinez Kosana, and the rest of the team for assisting with planning, designing, and the management of this project. Stay tuned for our next episode where we continue to explore the journeys of Wits alumni and how they are shaping the world. Subscribe, share, and let us know your thoughts by leaving a review. For more on Wits University, please visit www.wits.ac.za.